Welcome to Municipal Affairs. I'm Christopher Brown. Over 700 delegates gathered in Winnipeg last week for the Association of Manitoba Municipalities Fall Convention. The three-day convention was full of events and speeches from provincial and federal political leaders. We spoke with municipal leaders from across the province to simply ask them a question. Did they hear anything from Premier Wab Kinew, leader of the official opposition Wayne Ewasko, or during the Ministerial Forum, aka the Bear Pit, that gives them hope for a better future for Manitoba's municipalities?
Day two of the convention, you heard Premier Kinew speak, you've heard the leader of the official opposition speak, you've heard the Ministerial Forum, which you asked questions. Did you hear anything that gives you pause and hope that you can go back to your community tomorrow and it will be a little bit better?
Well, the one question that I asked, the second question I asked related to RCMP use of mental health transfers. That was something that was very promising because we do know that with the mental health transfers is a part of the Mental Health Act. Minister in charge of the family health did mention that they need to look at it, has been looked at for a long time. And I did get the sense that they understand that when RCMP are pulled from communities in order to do those transfers, it's a harm to the community itself because there's nobody to policing. But that last little question that I threw in there about the cost, I mean, we're still paying for the RCMP service, but when they go from the hospital to do those transfers, that cost isn't being covered by healthcare, and I don't know if that's the right way to go. The provincial government, the province has a lot of other options too. I mean, there is the sheriff's departments. There are those. The minister mentioned about hiring more healthcare, and the one comment she did that was raised a hope was that they're hiring more people that when it's not a safety issue, it shouldn't become an RCMP issue. That was good hope. That's what I enjoyed. I expected.
Did you hear anything that you were upset about?
There was, I mean, in my very first question, I talked about the provincial sales tax rebate on gas. And it was disappointing because my main concern was that, we're losing that revenue. So if we continue this, how's that revenue going to be replaced? What I was glad I did, we didn't really get an answer, but what I'm glad I didn't hear was a few years ago when the Progressive Conservative government and they had first instituted that break on property taxes for school taxes where they're giving it in. I'd asked the minister at that time, well, where are you making up that funding? Like, where is that money coming in from? And the answer was general revenues and nothing else. And it never got cleared. And it was just one thing I went, well, okay, that's what it is. So, I mean, Premier Kinew did talk a lot about, from that tax, about what the benefit they're doing and how they're saving for. So he did do the nice, wonderful, we are trying to get money to the health, we are trying to get money to families, and we are trying to, we're giving the break in that. But it was disappointing not to know from any of the ministers where it is that if they continue that gas tax rebate, where are we going to make up the income?
What would you wanted to have heard? Because you talk about, the one thing I hear from municipal leaders is always, if you have an issue, come to me with a solution. Mm-hmm. What's the solution that you would have wished they would have addressed at that ministerial forum or during Premier Kinew's speech?
Even that there's a plan. Because the other point that I made is it's not just Manitobans that aren't paying the gas taxes, it's people that come into Manitoba don't pay for it. So is there a plan, is there a way that you can collect that gas tax and then rebate it back to Manitobans? I mean, I can only imagine the paperwork that might come from it, but there were years ago, I remember years and years and years ago when I first started, Fast Gas used to, fill out those logs, right? And you kept, and then you got a rebate. I know that that's not what it is, but in today's day and age, you want to give as much back as you can to the community. I just would like to have heard them say that, we are going to continue, and maybe we will need to do a plan in order to collect this money for the province and then rebate it back in some other forms.
You're heading back to your Rossburn, the municipality of Rossburn, later on tomorrow. 3-day convention, what are you hoping is the key takeaway for yourself so that way when you go back to your residents say, I went to AMM, I fought for this issue. What is that thing that you hope people will take away from this convention and you can go back to your community and say, we tried our best to get it on the provincial sort of stage?
Well, that's the one thing, but you sure don't get a lot of time to talk with ministers. And in our area, we're looking at our waste, our garbage dump. It needs to be redone. We got to change the transfer station. So we've had some conversations there. Policing service is one of it again too. We've been one of the areas that again have had a lot of crime. The RCMP in our area have stepped up big time. but we're staff shortage. And listening to Premier Kinew talk about bringing in more officers and trying to get that going, that's a hopeful message that yes, hopefully in the next few years we're going to get the 14 or 16 members our region is entitled to, and that we'll be getting those full services, and that there's the other side things that the RCMP are doing now will be gone, and they'll be able to focus on that prime convention, being able to be there for us, the investigations, so that they can devote the time they need to make sure that the criminals that are charged are prosecuted and that our communities become safer and safer.
Does it give you a little bit of hope? And I know we're talking about international politics here for a second, but President-elect Donald Trump came out and said we're going to put tariffs on Canadian-made products. And one of the things is the reason why is because of the drugs that are coming across the Canadian border. Premier Kinew addressed that today in his speech in the Ministerial Forum, saying we're going to try and shore up the border and try to get some more police on the ground. Does that give you a little bit of hope that they're finally going to be able to take this seriously, so that way we're not imposed with a 25% tariff?
Yes, the simple answer, yes. But I also got to add, and I wish you hadn't asked me that question, but I also got to add, it was funny listening to the news last night about Donald Trump, is that's what he's going to do. And then following that, there was in the news about down, I think it was in British Columbia, where a semi-load was pulled out and there's a whole bunch of cocaine that was coming in. Which direction was that coming from? That was coming from U.S. to us. So it is a both way. The fact that they're willing to work with all the provinces are willing to work to try and get the border safety, that's just good all around. But I am a little fearful for myself hearing the numbers today about that's $2,000 per person, basically lowering that. Yeah, that could hurt us. It's a shame that it's almost like it's a threat, and that's what it seems like politics is becoming. The fact that Premier Kinew, with all the other premiers and even the federal government, are at least taking it that, look, we're willing to work. That's a good message. I'm glad it's not going to sound like it's going to be a battle. Well, if you're going to do this, we're going to do this. It's kind of like, okay, yes, we do need to do this stuff and work it through. So I'm glad that message is out there. The one thing that Premier did say today, and he brought it up again, it was his campaign, One Manitoban. Doesn't matter where you are from, where you're part, we need to do what's best for Manitobans. And I like that message. I'm hopeful for that message. And in the end, I just would like to see that it work out so that all of us are gaining something, and we've got what we need, which is safety, roads, hospitals, the pies list of everything. He also did say something that I have to agree with. It's not going to get fixed in one term, but I hope there's a good, strong foundation that will continue with whatever happens in 3 years.
Going to pause there for a second. Just going to jump one last question for a different story I'm working on. For the municipality of Rossburn, what does AMM mean?
AMM is a chance to meet with, it's the one time where we get to meet with all the other municipalities. I mean, we all have our districts and we meet maybe once or twice a year, but I don't get to meet with the people from the east, the people from the north. And then the other thing that we really found this year was the trade show that they offer. There was a really good selection. We were able to get a lot of answers, and we actually got some questions answered that we never even thought about, were they even going to be answered. And again, it was related around our garbage dump, so we were able to get some other options that we can consider going forward while we deal with that problem. AMM gives us the opportunity to be with the leadership here and to start basically hammering them on what are they going to do for us. I mean, AMM does cost us money as well. We want to return back just like we do with the government. And this is the one time where we get to do it and hear from everyone else and all their concerns. The questions today were nice. It was good to hear that there are several concerns that are similar all the way around.
Day 3 of the convention, you heard from Premier Kinew, you heard from the Leader of the Official Opposition, you heard from the Ministerial Forum. Was there anything in this 3-day convention that you can take back to your community and say, we're better off, or we've started that relationship building to work collaboratively?
We're working towards the funding model for all municipalities and not per capita, and the fact that the ministers are listening and the Premier is very encouraging. We start small with this one, and we're going to ask for more, because again, Brad Saluk, our Vice President, said we're working in 2024 with $2016, so the fight isn't over yet. We need more. Municipalities are the backbone of this province, and we need the province's help to move forward.
You, on the first day, along with 3 mayors, had a press conference right where we're standing actually talking about municipal autonomy and the municipal board. You went as far as to say you would actually like to see the municipal board potentially abolished. Do you think the Premier and the ministers are hearing that call to reform or even abolish the municipal board?
I'm hoping so, because you know what? The municipal board is making decisions and it doesn't affect them. They may not live in the municipality where the problem is. And what's happening is developers that have deep pockets can challenge smaller municipalities, and the legality fees are dumped on the average ratepayer, and that is not fair. So I hope that they're listening. We need our local autonomy. We were elected. We know what's best for our municipalities, and I'm hoping that they give us the consideration that we want.
Do you feel like you're being heard?
I believe so. I believe that honestly there is a genuine want for the ministers and the Premier to listen to us, and we thank them very much for the conversation because we appreciate it.
Heading back to the convention for a second, the 3-day convention, a lot of networking, a lot of connecting with like-minded municipalities. What do you take away as Reeve? What do you try to get from this 3-day convention?
Personally, I love the Ministerial Forum, the Bear Pit. I like the hard questions. I like the questions heard from all over the province being posed to the ministers. I love the breakout sessions where you have a chance to really learn and make a difference in your community. And just the networking of people is simply amazing. From Thompson to Altona, there's always somebody that has a story and that needs to be heard, and these are things that we bring back to AMM to make a difference.
Reeve, day 2 of the convention, you've heard from Premier Kinew, you've heard from the Leader of the Official Opposition, you've heard from the Ministerial Forum. Did you hear anything that you can take back to your community on Thursday and make a bit bigger impact from a provincial standpoint?
No, I haven't.
Really?
Really.
What were you hoping to hear?
A little more direction, a little more, this is what we're doing. All I hear is that we're listening, and I think they're trying, but I don't think they have a real plan in a plan or a direction of where they're headed just yet.
So what do you do with that information, knowing that you don't really have anything coming out of this convention? What can you take back to Riding Mountain West and say, how can we move forward when the province doesn't know where they're going?
I think it's like always, most municipalities, they just kind of fend for themselves and do their own thing, and if the government steps up, the government steps up, and if they don't, they don't. But at the end of the day, they said that they're going to give $62 million more funding, but for a small municipality like us on a per capita basis, that ends up being like $4,000. That barely fills the fuel tank once. So we just got to keep doing what we're doing and try and progress our municipality forward the best way we know how. And if the Manitoba government's there to help us, they are, and if they're not, we just got to keep going ahead.
What's the one thing you're hoping that you can progress a little bit further in 2025, looking at, like you said, $4,000 extra next year from the province? Doesn't seem like that much. So what are you looking to progress the most?
Well, coming from the Manitoba government standpoint, this per capita funding really doesn't do smaller municipalities any good, because like I said, if it's only $3,000 or $4,000, that doesn't pay for very much. So we need a better funding model, something more of a land use. Like in the summertime, our municipality grows quite a bit because of the recreation. We have one of the biggest infrastructure projects in Manitoba's history with the Shellmouth Dam in 1970s, and they kind of forget about us on the western side of the province, and that's sad. I'm not blaming this NDP government, but it's been every government since then that just kind of takes us for granted, and they need to start looking at how do we help these smaller municipalities, not just Portage, Winkler, Brandon, Thompson. It's about everybody in Manitoba.
So what would be, whenever I speak to municipal leaders, I even spoke to you, and you said, if you have an issue, come to me with a solution. What is the solution that you would hope? If tomorrow morning Wab Kinew woke up and said, you know what, we're going to follow Grant's direction, what direction would that be?
I think the first thing they need to do is actually come to every municipality and speak to them and see what their funding model would be. But I think it's just like I said, you look at each individual municipality, what their costs are, what's going on with them, how can we make them prosperous, and go from there. But just basing it on a per capita basis like we have for the last 40, 50 years isn't working anymore.
It's ironic because the Premier up on the stage talked about one Manitoba. It doesn't seem like you feel like you're part of that one Manitoba, being from a smaller rural municipality.
It's a sad situation, but you nailed it.
Well, Grant, always a pleasure.
Well, it's sometimes people don't want to hear the honest truth, but that is the honest truth, right? And we've tried to talk to ministers about infrastructure funding, highways that need to be fixed in our area and stuff like that, and it just kind of always gets kicked down the can. You kick the can down the road kind of a deal, and after a while you just get tired of it. So, if this is what it takes to make some noise, well then I'll be the guy for you. So.
Mayor Fossey, this is day 2 of the convention, and you've heard from Premier Kinew, you've heard from the Leader of the Official Opposition, you've also heard the Ministerial Forum. Is there anything that you're taking away from the last 2 days so far out of this 3-day convention?
I do like the fact that, everybody listens well. People all show up. The Premier has always got an open door and has been very fortunate to have sort of that healthy relationship. Wayne Ewasko, Leader of the Opposition, also a top quality person. Manitoba, we're very fortunate with good people all around, and it's that other level of government where they get to have the oppositions and different parties and that, whereas we're municipal and we just got to govern. So we're working with, it's easier of course when you're in the municipality, you work with governments.
One of the big key takeaways from the last 2 days so far has been affordability. Now, budgets are on top of minds for a lot of municipalities right now. Going home to Brandon in about 2 days, what do you hope that you can take back and say it's going to make our budget cycle a little bit easier, or is it still going to be hard heading back?
Oh, it's going to be hard. We're in a spot right now that there's a lot of corrections going on. There's a lot of investment going on. We are in a high tax time, and it's not great at all. Nobody really wants to be the leader of a municipality at that time. But there was a little bit here that does help us going forward. I was able to talk to the Premier about some other things too that might help us a little bit.
Can you say what?
Just a couple of other little funding things on particular projects that would actually impact the budget a bit. So, in this calendar year, not massively significant, but yes, the province will probably help us with a point or so in our budget for sure, just this year by just what they were announcing today.
One of the big concerns that was announced yesterday was a 25% tax on tariffs on Canadian-made products. Now, for a mayor who represents a large population in this province, do you have concerns looking at what's happening down south and how it could affect the economy of your community?
Yeah, absolutely. You always do, because you always prepare for what might not be there, and it is tough to tell what's going on down south. All we know is it'll be unknown. Sometimes it's, well, listen to exactly what the incoming president's saying, and other times it's, well, that's not really what he meant. So we don't know. I think there'll be a lot of adjustments. The upside of Manitoba is, some might say we always hover just above a recession. So the good times are never super good, but the bad times never get really bad. So we have a very stable economy in that way. So yes, it could be for Canada. It wouldn't be great. For Manitoba, it just wouldn't be good.
What's the key takeaway from for the last 2 days and the next day that you can look back to your residents and say, this is why we are part of AMM?
Well, I think a big piece was, we don't have exactly what we want for municipal funding, but just the fact that they did what they did. That's a significant piece, to enhance the municipal funding. We know You're
talking about the $62 million over 5 years.
Yeah, because that is something. And we know across the provinces here that the municipal funding model is not great. I did have a chance to talk to Minister Sala previously, and then just in passing again today about, let's continue to look at some of the Saskatchewan model based on PST, so it's based on economic growth, and that way the municipalities could Sherilyn, Minister of Portage, we're on the same page on a lot of things. But we can talk to them about benefiting from growth. Right now, municipalities don't benefit from growth in the same ways that provincial and federal governments do. So there's lots of things to continue to talk about. But AMM has really worked hard to get to the point where we are now, which is an improvement from where we were the day before.
Larry, thank you so much for doing this. This is day 2 2 of the convention of AMM. You've had Premier Kinew speak, you've had the leader of the official opposition speak, you've had the Ministerial Forum. Have you heard anything that you can take back to Selkirk and feel a little bit more optimistic about moving forward with the provincial government or the official opposition?
Oh, no, absolutely, Chris. Thanks for having me. There's a lot of positivity that came out of today, and I'll be frank with you. I was at the throne speech, and tomorrow we're doing an announcement with the Minister of Health. They're doing 800 more hip and knee surgeries in the city of Selkirk at our Selkirk Regional Hospital. They're hiring 2 surgeons. They've got them hired already. They're coming in, and also some good support staff. So it's those kind of things that keep it positive, that keep us feeling good about what's going on. And I feel the room in there, can be a little bit tough when you have the ministerial bear pit. It's you're not going to get a lot of positivity out of it. You're going to get, I want this, I want that. But I think it's important that they're up there and they're answering the tough questions.
One of the things that we heard a lot during that Ministerial Forum is affordability. Cost of doing business, cost of living is going up. Municipalities are bearing the brunt of it. What do you take from what you heard from today and go back to Selkirk and hopefully work on your budget or work on your 4-year budget to ensure that your residents aren't being affected as dramatically as they could be?
Oh, absolutely. It's very, very important. And I feel there's a lot of other municipalities that are kind of looking at what Selkirk has been doing. And I even had Minister Simard come up to me yesterday and say, Selkirk's, you're leading in a lot of aspects. What was the game plan? And I'll tell you, the game plan was before we start expanding or inviting expansion, we had our infrastructure in place. We did a brand new wastewater treatment plant. We upgraded our water plant. We created our own planning department. So what happened was we were ready to say yes and not ready to say no. And there's a lot of communities that kind of go the other way. They go growth and then they start thinking maybe we should do a little more planning. And it doesn't work then. It backfires on you. So we have the out of province investors now, lots of local investors, and we're building and we're growing. So as mayor, I couldn't be prouder of the way the team did it.
You were part of a news conference on day 1 of the convention talking about municipal boards, and we did live stream part of it, but I have to ask a question that got cut off. It is inside baseball to a T. Most residents probably don't know what a municipal board is. How do you get people engaged into the fact that municipal boards are something that needs to be reformed?
Yeah, oh no, absolutely. I agree 100%. A lot, and even before I got into politics, I was working for a living and, I'm just trying to keep my head above water and keep the bills paid and the lights on and whatnot. But it's when we can do events like the one you attended yesterday and it gets out there, you get it out there, the news networks get it out there, the paper media gets it out there. That helps to inform the citizens about what's going on. And in turn, I had a lot of people come to me already, and citizens, and email and text and say, what is it about that municipal board? Like, what don't you don't like about it and whatnot? Should we be wary about it? So it raises the awareness. And I had finished off a question almost when we were finished yesterday. The question was about saying, do residents really care? Do they know about it? And my answer was, they know about it when, in the financial plan, their street is set to be done, and then it doesn't get done for 1 or 2 years because it's tied up in the red tape bureaucracy of the municipal board.
So going back to the convention for a few seconds, if you don't mind, before I wrap up, is what do you mostly take away from this 3-day convention here in Winnipeg as the mayor of your community? Is there one thing that you look forward to the most when you come here, or is it just the connections that you make, or is it the ministerial forums? What do you take away from the 3-day convention as a whole?
Well, I think the context is immense. We see a lot of people that we may not see during the year or during the years. But the important part is to show support for the provincial government. I think that's immense. I'm up at the second row up there, and I'm, looking at them and nodding and smiling. And, we seen the Premier, you and I, when he was walking out, and, we had a chance to shake his hand and talk to him about things and offer our support to him. Forum. We're lucky we don't have to worry about ministerial meetings because we're close enough to Winnipeg. We have a good relationship, very good working relationship with this provincial government. So we'll gladly let the ones from up north and further away have the ministerial meetings here, because we know if we have to talk to somebody, we can send an email, and they're very respectful. So I think it's just being here, seeing the people again, making some more contacts. The trade show is always good, seeing the innovative things that are coming forward, and touching base with people like you, Chris. It's really important, and I truly appreciate the work you do.
Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of Municipal Affairs. Now, we hope you've enjoyed today's episode. If you haven't already, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an upcoming episode. Now, we are going to be launching our series of Year in Review, where we're going to be speaking to provincial and territorial presidents of municipal organizations to talk to them about the year that just was 2024 and the year that will be 2025. So be sure to tune in and check those out in the coming days. So until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and we'll be back with a brand new episodes in a couple of days of Municipal Affairs. Till then, everyone.